You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We're Libertarians Network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Morrell, and as always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis.
Hey, how's it going, Jeremiah?
This is episode 60 today.
The big 6-0.
Big 60. It's a special episode.
Did we get AARP now?
I think so. It's a hostage situation for Dakota. He has no interest in being here whatsoever. We're gonna talk him into liking racing tonight.
If you start talking AARP, I'm going to leave. I'm the only one that actually gets the mail.
Yeah, well, you look young. So our show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's a show about folks who are involved in politics. Not today. Well, Mike's already lost on office, too, so we can get into that for a minute. We promise that our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. We interview people who are influencers, elected officials, political experts, and folks we just find interesting. That last one is the catch-all we use to cover today. We are joined, this is our Indy 500 preview show. So we are right now 5 days from the Indy 500, the biggest sporting event in the world, and definitely a major thing in central Indiana and in our community. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today, preview the race, and talk about the whole month of May and how we got here. So we're joined by Mike McKown, who is a noted fellow here in Newcastle. He's a realtor. He's a photographer. We were just talking to Zach on the other side of the room over here. He had his high school pictures done by Mike at the beginning of this millennium. But Zach and I graduated the same year, so I'm not making him feel old. It's just making Dakota feel young.
Barely.
So, but the cool thing today is that Mike is he's a photographer at the Speedway, entering your 30th year at the track, and you are what they call an old timer. You're not wearing your old timers hat, though. You're wearing your Fuzzy's vodka hat.
Last night was the old timers barbecue, and Thursday night is the big shindig coat and tie deal for the Hall of Fame, where they're going to bring in Jeff Gordon and
Tony Stewart, right?
Tony Stewart, and we will also honor Rocket Man Rick Mears for the 1988 win. Which was my first race there.
First one was Rick Mears' third win.
Right.
There we go.
Yep.
That was 30 years ago. God, that's just nuts.
It's hard to believe that when I was sitting in class in 1982, I got a pass to go to the principal's office, which was not that uncommon for me at 16 years old. And my dad had picked me up, and he stole two credentials from the Courier-Times and took me over there in 1982. I photographed my first qualifications day and my first practice day as a photographer over there on an illegal credential. And in 1988, I became an Associated Press photographer and been there ever since.
Been there legally ever since. So on the other side of the room, we have Zach Burcham, and Zach is there's like
Zach is our token expert.
Well, he's not a token expert. I put it this way: there's not a lot of people that can keep up with me on 500 knowledge and IndyCar Series knowledge and open wheel knowledge. Zach's in that club. He knows what he's talking about. Is that fair?
I try. I think in the general public I do, but I also I try to go to events where I don't know anything compared to anybody that I'm in the room with, and so that. I learned something that way, which is not hard to do with the 500 and IndyCar in general. Yeah, well, people will say that I know everything. Like you're scratching the surface. There's so much to the history and the tradition of this race that I know. I'm familiar with the things I've been present for. I've been going to the track since about my first race was like 2003. The first one I attended. I went in 1995 as a kid on a school field trip. I think it was the first time I went to the track before Dakota was born, but it doesn't feel like that long. And, you remember things. I remember we'll talk about a few different things that happened over the weekend and how they tie in, but I very clearly remember the stuff in 2011 because I was there, right? Yeah. And I'm guessing you're similar. Yeah, I can remember. I can't even remember when my first 500 was. I went to quite a few as a kid. And I can remember, like, for at least the last about 20, 25 years I've been going. So, and then the last 10 or 15 really gotten into going to every I'm usually at the track every weekend in the month of May, or try to be.
So you've had the commitment to actually go. I've been. I'm getting married this year, so that's my excuse. I've not been to the track yet. I'm going to go out on carb day, and I'll be out with a race day.
Hey, I assure you, I'm the only person that's probably ever proposed to their wife in an Indy car.
An Indy car.
Yes. I put Amy in the pole-setting car of Vincenzo Sospiri back in the day, and actually that's when I proposed to my wife.
So what year was Vincenzo Sospiri on the pole? 1989?
No. This would have been 98, I think. No, it would have been 97 that I proposed. He was a Dick Simon racer, and he was there 1 year and 1 year only. He set the pole and never came back.
That was the race that was run on Tuesday.
Yes, it was.
Some guy proposed in his car, man.
Yeah.
Not coming back to that.
That's true.
So we are going to talk about, I guess, the race in general, starting from nothing, because Dakota here,
I know nothing.
You're going to go for the very first time.
Yep.
Sunday.
Yep.
With me. We've
I
talked
thought
about
the
it a little
race was
bit.
on Tuesday, not Sunday.
Well,
Let us hope not.
yeah, if it's Tuesday, we're all sick Tuesday. They haven't had to do a Tuesday race in 21 years, I guess. So it's going to be Sunday morning. We're going to go. The race is run at noon. We're going to leave here probably at 4 a.m. Get in line. The gates open at 6 a.m. and we're going to tailgate. So we're going to be the early crowd on 16th Street waiting in line. Gates open at 6. We'll be set up by 7 o'clock if everything goes well, and by noon you'll be well buzzed, and you'll have all kinds of new friends out there at the Speedway in the Turn 3
most
infield.
of which you will never remember or see again.
See, you told me, you invited me to go this year. You invited Audrey and myself, and I was like, all right, I'll go to go. I'll go to see it. I've never done it before, so I said yes and looked up the time. I'm like, oh, race starts at noon. Probably have time to go camping Friday and Saturday, and then meet Jeremiah at his house like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
No.
Nope.
This is the world's largest sporting event. You'll have 300,000 people, or 300,000 plus, in the same place at the same
Bigger
time.
than the Super Bowl?
This is unreal.
Really?
Yeah.
The largest single-day sporting event in the world, and up until like the mid-'90s, pole day was the second largest single-day sporting event in the world.
Wow.
In terms of attendance for the day.
See, I had no idea it was that big.
Yeah. So Carb Day, Friday, the estimates will be somewhere between 80 and 100,000 people will be at Carb Day.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which is a big concert. There's 2 concerts. Train and Blues Traveler play, and they'll have an hour of IndyCar practice and the support series. So like the AAA series will be out there on Carb Day practicing. So, they'll run the race, rather, the Freedom 100 or whatever.
All 8 of them.
So do they race while the concerts are going on?
No, it's the IndyCars practice like at 10 o'clock, or somewhere in there, 10 or 11 o'clock. They'll practice for an hour. The Freedom 100 will go for about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour, and then they'll have a pit stop competition where not all of the pit crews, but say the top 12 or 16 teams will do a pit stop competition. And then once the track activities end, they will open the concert area up in Turn 4, and people will go watch. If you're on the ground, you can go see Blues Traveler and Train for free.
A good deal of the people will never hear a note.
What happens during that time in the middle is all the race fans wander out of the track, and a bunch of college kids wander into the track, and literally the place, probably like 50% of the population, probably turns over.
You swap them out, yeah.
in about an hour.
I'm a big 90s fan, so I will go see Blues Traveler. I saw Bare Naked Ladies last year, and I'll definitely go check out Blues Traveler. By the time Train comes on, I'll be done. I'll be ready to go home. I don't need to see them. But Blues Traveler, I'm all about John Popper. That'll be fun. He's a Ron Paul guy, Dakota.
Is he really?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's there's your libertarian tie-in, so we check the box.
Yeah,
now you just have to mention Darren Jacobs' name, and this is a real Boss Hog of Liberty episode.
I'm trying to think of it.
So the race is Sunday. The last 2 days have been qualifying. The month of May is like this big build-up. So 3 weeks ago, we were at the Libertarian Convention, and it was the first weekend in May. And Zach, you were out participating in festivities. Other than being a big race fan, you've got a runner's body, so you go run marathons.
Yeah.
Or mini marathons.
Right. Yeah, I do marathons occasionally, but I've been doing the mini. That was my 11th year doing the mini. I love doing that. So that's my kickoff for the month of May. I get to go visit the track on foot.
So you do 13 miles from downtown Indianapolis out to the west side. You go around the track and then back. So you actually circulate the 2.5 mile oval.
Yep. Come out on exit at turn 2 and exit right there by the Fuzzies Suites coming out. So
Go Fuzzies.
We'll get into that in a minute as to why Mike is decked out. If you're watching the camera, you can see it. But if you're not, everybody's in some sort of Indy 500 attire except for Dakota. Fuzzy's in his CFH racing, not the Ed Carpenter racing. He's in an old shirt. He's had it for a while.
We were in the real one all weekend, and it would stand on its own. So we went with the throwback today.
So he's in the Ed Carpenter racing, Fuzzy's Vodka, Chevy. It's a team uni, really. It's not. That's you may be able to buy it for about $80, but it looks like a team crew shirt.
It is,
and he's got his Fuzzy's hat on. Zach is wearing his 100th anniversary Indy 500 shirt, and I've got a Indianapolis Motor Speedway shirt on. Dakota doesn't yet own an Indy 500 shirt, but
he will Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday we'll get him. We'll get $40 out of his pocket and buy something for him.
$40,
maybe. What size shirt are you? You an XL?
I'm a large.
If you can wear an XL, I'll
the
get you
Chevy
one.
trailer and sign your name, you'll get one for free.
Hey, there we go.
There you go.
What I do.
Promise to test drive a new pace car.
That's right.
$80,000 for Camaro, and they'll give you a T-shirt.
Do they run a credit check?
Yeah.
They used to do test drives. You could literally test drive some of the cars, and the sheriff's department was there with the breathalyzer test to make sure that nobody had too much fun before partaking in the driving.
I test drove a Chevy Volt there one time.
A Volt?
Yes, the Volt.
Huh. How was that?
It was quiet.
Yeah, I
very
imagine
simple.
it was.
Trying to turn Zach up here. I don't know which one he is, which one's Zach and which one's Mike. That's my problem. People are telling us that they're having a hard time hearing Zach. We're efforting.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Much better.
You got to project. You remember in the beginning, you've been an early listener of this show. Dakota had to broadcast from his diaphragm.
Yeah.
You just have to project.
Yep.
Get up on it.
It's on the diaphragm.
We'll get you. All right. So the race is Sunday. The last 2 days on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, were qualifying. So, and I was very upset. Like I don't care that James Hinchcliffe missed the race, who was one of the biggest stars in the series, and I don't care that James Hinchcliffe missed. You know, we previewed it last week a little bit, saying, hey, you know, we're going to have two drivers going to miss the field. The Indy 500, there are 11 rows of 3. So traditionally, other than a couple of weird examples, 33 cars start this race. So if 33 cars show up, then 33 cars run. If 38 show up, then 5 go home. This year, 35 made it. 35 arrived. So we knew 2 were going to go home. I don't care that James Hinchcliffe missed. It's great. I want the fastest 33 cars, no matter who it is. I don't care if you're, I don't care if you're Simon Pagenaud or Will Power or one of the fastest guys or James Hinchcliffe and you missed the race, you missed the race. But I was very annoyed Saturday that we had what should have been 6 hours of qualifying, had 2 rainstorms, and the field was set. You know, they basically everybody was given one chance to go through the qualifying line. Should have been a 6-hour day. They had about 3 hours to qualify, 3.5 hours to qualify everybody, and that was it. So they had 50 minutes of practice time or open time for drivers to make additional attempts at the track, and that was it. And Hinchcliffe had a problem or two, and I'm not convinced that the fastest 33 had a chance to make the race. That was my annoyance Saturday.
I don't think the 5:50 instead of 6 o'clock helped anything by any means.
Right.
You know, lately at the Speedway, it's all about money. You know, and TV dictated that they wanted 10 minutes to play out the drama, and they may have created that drama. You know, I hate to see Hinch not make the race. He's a really nice guy. He is a spokesman for Honda and IndyCar racing, and you know, I felt that way back in the day when Al Jr. or Emerson Fittipaldi didn't make the race. You know,
right. Zach, you can help me out with this. Obviously the month of May has become very expensive to run. So it used to be truly a month, and now we have the Grand Prix. We had you did the mini marathon. Yeah. The next weekend we have the Grand Prix, which is a road course race inside of the Speedway, which is great. And then you have 1 weekend qualifying. At one time we had 2 weekends of qualifying, so 7 hours. So they would qualify from 11 to 6, Saturday and Sunday the first weekend. And then the next weekend, you'd come back again and have a Saturday and Sunday. So you had 28 hours of track time to qualify, to set the field. You run one of the 33 fastest laps or 33 fastest qualifying times in those 28 hours, you're in the race. This time you had 6 hours of time. You had rain cut into half of it, so you had 3.5 hours, and it just short-circuited everything, in my view.
So why would it take so long to get them to qualify? Isn't it just...
Well, 4 days was too long. Standing there watching cars go around for 4 solid days was too long. They burned up too much tires. It took too much time. They weren't getting attendance, and they had to have all those yellow shirts and all of those security people there. It was too much. I think the thought process behind it was, hey, we're going to take it down to 1 day to make it exciting, and then the next day the Fast 9 will be exciting, and we'll be able to consolidate 4 days into 2 days and not have as much overhead and not be able to do that.
Right.
I think it probably works
if it's dry.
But
in May, Indianapolis is not dry. The best example in the modern era I had, because I was very annoyed. Like I said, Saturday and Sunday I was very annoyed with the way it was set up. We haven't had real bumping in significant fields. We previewed this on the Robin Miller show we had a few months ago since 2011. 2011 is the last time where you had 36 cars show up, 35 cars show up, where you had 2 or 3 cars. Buddy Lazier had missed the race a couple years ago, but he was not going to make the race. He was the slowest guy there. And in 2011, they had 2 days of qualifying. You had qualifying from 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock each day. And then the Fast 9 still existed, where the top 9 people are locked in and they get to run for the pole. And that worked really well. But you could still make the race the next weekend. And we just didn't have that this time.
Or at least have the overnight to fix your car, to figure something out. I think Hinch's run, his aborted run, ended because of tire pressure sensor fell off in the wheel. And at 200 miles an hour, that turns into a real problem.
So basically, they made an attempt at their first attempt that they had. He went right after the first rainstorm. So you've got jet dryers out there that are, you don't want to make excuses, but what legitimately happened is you've got a track that was dried by jet fuel. So you've got some residue on the track, and he doesn't have the ideal conditions to run. He makes that first attempt and runs a 2:24, where the pace to get into the race is 2:25 or 2:26. Then his second attempt that he gets in that last 45 minutes of track time that's there was, he had a tire pressure problem, and he never had the opportunity to get back on the track.
No.
And it's over.
But look at Alexander Rossi. I mean, that's the same deal, only he made the show.
Right, he made the show. He was 10th fastest or 11th fastest on Saturday.
And he ends up 32nd.
And he had a punctured tire, and he started at the end of the field.
Had he had another day to go out there, he's 10, 11, or 12.
Right.
And not 33.
Yeah, and that's the part that's just annoying to me. I don't care. If Pippa missed the race, fine. If Zach Veach missed the race, if it was James Davison who was 33rd, those things happen. But they need more time to let the story develop, and I think that's where I was just irritated. There have been people that have called for the 25-8 rule, which is something that came along in the mid 90s when there was a split between the two series. And I don't think that's what they need to do. I'm fine with the 33 fastest cars.
They ended up with 35 again.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, that was the last time that happened. So I think they came up with this format. Some of it works very well. I like the one-shot deal on Sunday where they all get one. They go from the slowest qualifiers on Saturday and to the fastest. So the last guy should be your pole sitter if he can hold pace from the day before. But they have them kind of overlap. It's the first year that they really had bumping with this format, and so they kind of figured out that maybe this doesn't work real well, or you need to give them a bit more time. But we'll see. I know they've said they'll discuss it when it's all said and done, but who knows what they'll do.
The thing you really need to look at, Doug Bowles has done a lot for the IndyCar and a lot for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Doug Bowles is the president of the Speedway.
Yes. If he takes a look at it and evaluates it and puts the staff on it, I look for it to improve. He's the guy that they didn't want to have coolers in the track for Homeland Security reasons. And he says, there are people that have stickers on their coolers from the last 20 years bringing it in the Speedway, and that's part of the Speedway.
It's part of the tradition of what we do here.
Yeah, so, I think they'll evaluate it. I hope that it improves. I think the Fast 9's a great thing. I think going into the Fast 9, I thought there would be a couple of Andretti cars there that weren't because of the one-shot deal. That's the way it works.
So the fastest 9, you have there are 2 manufacturers of motors. The cars all look the same this year. We had different body kits in the past. Now this year, they have a common body to the car, but you have 2 different engine manufacturers. So there's Chevrolet and there's Honda. Chevrolet was much better this year. So,
but I'm not sure they're that much
in
better
qualifying.
Racing.
In qualifying, they were faster. So there were 7 Chevys in the top 9 and 2 Hondas. 4 teams, I think, were represented amongst all of those, if I remember right.
Two teams were the 7 Chevys.
Yeah,
right.
Basically all of the Penske cars and all of the Carpenter cars
yeah.
were in the top 9, and then one
Dale Coyne car,
Sebastian Bourdais, and
Dixon.
then Scott Dixon for Ganassi Racing.
I really don't think we have a big 3 anymore. It's a little more level playing field. You knew Penske was going to be strong with all 4 cars. I think Ed Carpenter Racing was a surprise to put all 3 in there. Way to go, Spencer Piggott. Way to go, Danica Patrick. It made for some pretty interesting watching.
So after the qualifying was over, most people expected something to happen that has happened in the past, where if a driver that's a big name sponsor, to paint the picture for James Hinchcliffe, there's basically like 3 drivers in this series or maybe 4 drivers that have been on reality TV. IndyCar's way to get attention has been putting their drivers on reality TV. So Elio Castroneves once Dancing with the Stars and became this huge stud. Alexander Rossi and Connor Daly did The Amazing Race and got a huge amount of notoriety, and they're both in the race. They're starting 32nd, 33rd, but they're both in the race. James Hinchcliffe finished 2nd in Dancing with the Stars a couple of years ago, developed a big following, and he's now the spokesman. If you watched Dakota, another sport you don't watch, but NCAA, March Madness, if you watched any of the March Madness, James Hinchcliffe was in Honda commercials. Every commercial break, they had James Hinchcliffe and his Aero Racing Honda in the commercials, selling CRVs, selling Civics, selling Accords. I mean, they pushed James Hinchcliffe and Honda. And then you get 2 months later, James Hinchcliffe just missed the race. So it's a disaster for Honda, and it's a disaster for Aero, where you've got millions of dollars tied into this guy, and you're like, well, he missed the race.
And that's exposure the IndyCar's been desperately trying to get for the last 22 years since the split.
Since the split happened. So something that's happened in the past, and people assumed that it would happen again. There have been examples where huge name drivers, Bobby Rahal, who was a winner in the 80s, and he was the IndyCar Series champion in 1992. He came with Honda in 93 and missed the race, big Miller Genuine Draft sponsorship, and he didn't race. He's just like, well, that sucked, and we lost. Penske, we talked about that a minute ago with Mike. Team Penske, Marlboro Team Penske, with 2 Indy 500 winners, the defending champions of the race, totally missed the boat in 1995, and they went home. But you also have the examples of 1992. Scott Goodyear missed the race. They put him in Mike Groff's car as teammate, and the guy came back and he finished 2nd in the race and missed in the closest finish in the history of the race. And then more recently, 2011, Ryan Hunter-Reay and DHL in a brand new sponsorship deal that they wanted to protect and have going forward. Andretti Autosport bought a car from AJ Foyt, replaced Bruno Junqueira, who had been a pole sitter. He wasn't a slouch either, but he was kind of a one-off situation. So we kind of expected, with all of the money that was there, that some Honda guy was going to get some sort of a deal would be made, and they would let James Hinchcliffe in the race.
Yep.
So what's happened, Zach?
Nothing's happened so far. I think everybody kind of thought that, because if you go to the track right now, there's a gorgeous-looking temporary suite structure built in Turn 1 that's got Aero all over it. And so they kind of run down the options, and that team's got 2 different affiliated one-off programs. One of them is not theirs, but it's a Michael Shank Racing with Jack Harvey, and then the other one is Jay Howard. And somebody thought, well, they're just going to boot them out. Ultimately, it costs money to run those things, and those guys work hard to get those rides going. So that was quickly kind of nixed. I think the only other option I heard was Connor Daly. And if you follow Connor Daly on social media, he works hard. He went and did the Amazing Race last year. He got back, and I think the first day he was back and was off of his imposed kind of isolation, he found out he was fired from his driving job last year. So none of those guys were going to get up the
relation
road.
to John Daly?
No, his dad is Derek Daly, former Formula One driver and Indy 500 driver who you see on Channel 8. Who
Irishman.
Yeah,
an Irishman.
Well, yes, I'm
there
Derek
was also
Daly.
some sponsor ties there. I mean, you have the Air Force. The Air Force is not going to want a Canadian driver in their car. You know,
It didn't bother the National Guard to have Dan Weldon in their car or Vitor Mira, but yes, it was yeah. But Connor put that sponsorship together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all boils down to money. You know.
So you're saying Canadians don't have very much money?
No, I'm saying that the Air Force wants an American in their car.
Well, and there are more ties. All of these cars are on the grid because of business relationships that exist. You mentioned the Michael Shank car with Jack Harvey. That car is owned by Michael Shank. It's not owned by Sam Schmidt. They've got like a technical partnership,
technical alliance.
And then the Connor Daly car is owned by Dale Coyne, but it's a technical alliance with a guy named Tom Burns, it's leased to Tom Burns. Yeah. So it may not be Dale Coyne's decision to make on that car. So then that kind of pointed to Jay Howard, who is the other Sam Schmidt teammate, who's the one-off guy. But word is he's like, I'm not giving this car up.
I really don't think any driver has any say-so in that. I mean, it comes down to the money, the car owner, and the sponsors.
You would think that if the right check was cut, they would just say, the hell with it. We're going to pay you whatever you gave us. We're going to give you your money back. We'll fight it out in court later. And they could make the deal. I think if any deal is going to be made, it's going to be with Jay Howard's car. But at this point, I don't think it's happening. But I wouldn't be completely shocked if the 7 car was the Aero Electronics Jay Howard or the Aero Electronics James Hinchcliffe car.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that it'd be kind of a PR nightmare at this point because there's been a lot of backlash to even the thought of doing that, and so it might look better for them to have James doing PR in the suites, talking with people, and then a lot of people said that ABC needs to get him in the booth because if you ever heard an interview with James Hinchcliffe, he's a fantastic guy to talk to. He's real witty, he's quick, and he'd be great in the booth. They need the help in the booth.
He may be the Pat McAfee of IndyCar.
Oh, he is. James Hinchcliffe has a podcast, Dakota. He's a competitor of ours.
Off Track with Hinch and Rossi.
That's right.
And he also had the mayor on air before that.
That's right. He was syndicated on Sirius XM radio for a long time, and now he and Alex Rossi, 2 years ago, that guy won.
How do we get that slot?
I don't know. I guess we just gotta keep pounding away here, making laps, and someday we'll get found.
Maybe, hopefully.
The CEO of Sirius XM is one of the owners of that Michael Shank racing team.
Mike,
Absolutely.
Can you pull some strings for us?
I don't know that I've got the same race for that.
So this is the last year this race is going to be broadcast on ABC. Did Mike or Zach, you were probably both at the track, so you didn't have to suffer through the ABC coverage.
It was so bad I heard about it.
It was
something like the last 10 minutes and 35 seconds or something like that of television broadcast was 6.5 minutes of commercials.
John Orievitz went back and recorded it and made track so that they built this drama. James Hinchcliffe's going to miss the race. They missed all but about 20 seconds of Alex Rossi's run in the last 10 minutes. They were not following it. They were in a commercial break.
And they even wanted 10 extra minutes for the drama that they didn't play out.
That they didn't do. It was surreal. There was no, if you're watching a sporting event, there's some basic things you want to see. And I went back and watched the Versus coverage because I'm that much of a nerd. I went back and watched the Versus coverage in 2010 and 2011 where you had another real bump day. Versus is the group that was purchased by Comcast that became NBCSN. So that's the same group of people, and they're the ones that are going to take over next year. Versus had the times, that the bubble speed or the pole speed was on the screen the entire time. You knew what target you had. You knew who was on the bubble, what they needed to achieve. That was none of your business, as Bill Zarin would say.
Was that? Did he bring in Will Buxton that year?
I don't think Will Buxton, but Will Buxton did a little bit, but he wasn't on that year.
No, he was. I knew he was in Indianapolis one year when NBC Sports Versus had qualifications, and yeah.
But they had Wally Dallenbach. They had Townsend Bell was still in the race, and so was Paul Tracy. But they had Bob Jenkins, Jan Beekes, and Kevin Lee was in the pits, and they knew how to tell the story. And I for whatever reason, man, ESPN just absolutely does not give you like the information you need to know. if they're building on drama, you'd think you'd need to know what the bubble speed is. So if you've got somebody out there trying to make laps, you'd have a clue as to how fast they have to go.
And I can tell you that at the track, we knew that at all times because the nice thing about the track is they have big, huge TVs everywhere. And so I was out in turn 3, turn around, and I could watch a TV, and in the top right corner the whole time was this is the speed they have to beat. And then there was their speed floating in the left-hand side of the screen. So you always knew what was going on. And it even showed their position, and it would change the position where they were during the laps. So you knew that they were like right on the cusp of getting a little ahead or behind somebody.
It was brutal. So this is the final year ABC is going to carry the race. It's moving to NBC next year. So that I think the diehards that really understand racing are expecting to see big things from NBC next year. So, but we're going to suffer through one more ABC broadcast with literally, it's like Dakota. The guy that does the play-by-play is fine. He's Alan Bestwick. He's a longtime racing guy. He's fine. They have 2 color guys that haven't raced in IndyCar in 20 or 25 years, and they
Did you say colored?
Color. No, Willie T. Ribs isn't in the race. It's Scott Goodyear, the Canadian.
This 1932,
and Eddie Cheever, who's an American, but he grew up in Europe. And they're just, I don't know. They
have about as much personality as those limes in the glasses do. They don't get excited about anything, and they know what they're talking about. But you compare them to like the other broadcasts where you get like Paul Tracy and Townsend Bell, who can banter back and forth and throw out some sound bites that'll get you on the news the next day sometimes, and put their personalities in there. It's a whole lot better. Like I said, if Hinchcliffe gets in the booth for ABC, that'll be the best thing that can happen. And then people might actually miss them next year if they get Hinch in the booth. But
we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's absolutely. ABC has a way of taking the most exciting thing that could possibly be on television and putting you to sleep. Eddie Cheever and Scott Dixon should do golf coverage.
It sounds like IndyCar brought to you by the Masters.
That's great. I love that.
Eddie Cheever has the ability to be condescending and downplay and talk about how if a driver takes a risk, it was an unnecessary risk and they should never do that and they're stupid for having made that decision. And then it's just unreal the way he can turn it. So anyway, that's that part of the preview. The other reason that Mike, we'll pivot for a moment, tell a personal story. Mike is wearing all this Fuzzy's vodka stuff because he's a proud pop.
Absolutely.
Your daughter is on the team with Ed Carpenter Racing this year.
She is a PR intern for Ed Carpenter Racing. I will tell you, I have experienced 35 years of pole day drama, and it has never hit me like it hit me with Addie walking through the line with television for both Danica and Spencer, and then Ed Carpenter going out there and tuning 230. It was an incredible experience. I got up at the crack of dawn yesterday morning, was at the track at 6:30 to shoot the 7 o'clock pole picture, and never did I dream in my wildest imagination that I would have a family member out there on the track as a team member for that. It was an incredible experience. I was brought to the track by my uncle, Jim Davidson, who was a photographer there for 54 years or something like that.
Wow.
So that's how I got the bug. And to see my kids have the bug, my son at 10 years old had his first picture published that he took of Ed Carpenter. So the Carpenters have been very good to the McKowns.
So your daughter attends Butler University.
Butler University,
same
will
place
be a
that
sophomore.
Ed Carpenter graduated from.
We had Trip the dog there for pole day festivities. He just about ate Firehawk.
Firehawk is the little Firestone mascot.
Yeah.
So Dakota, to give you a scale as to what Ed Carpenter did on pole day, you're trying to run 4 laps around the speedway, so 2.5 miles. So it's a 10-mile trip. And his average speed on one of the laps was over 230 miles an hour.
Wow, that's nuts.
The rest of the field, the best they could do was a mile an hour slower.
It was crazy.
Which is fractions of a second. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess 225 around there is like 40 seconds. So you're in the 39 dots, 39 point something. And over the entire 4 laps, you're still talking about a couple tenths of a second for the front end of the field to the back end of the field to make 4 laps around there.
And if you look at the top big 3, up until this year, you had the Andretti's with all their sponsorships. You've had Penske with Verizon and all these sponsorships. You had Ganassi, who had the big red dot. They had Target all this time. And then you have Ed Carpenter that comes in there with Preferred Freezers and Fuzzy's Vodka and just makes them look silly.
Makes you think of the Rachel's potato chips car, huh?
I don't know that we'll go there.
From the track, the 230, when that went up on the board, everybody was cheering because that was just, you see that on pole day when you get a real good run, but it was hot. It was slick, and you kind of wondered, and people were having a rough time with the new body kits, and he did that. Everybody was kind of like, well, it's done at that point. That was a statement lap.
If the hair doesn't stand up on your neck on something like that with all those people cheering, it was just incredible.
So how many people are there for pole day?
I don't know, Mike and his family.
I'd say 20,000, maybe 25.
I was out on the grass mounds. There were quite a few people there. It's kind of hard to. I mean, there was a pretty good crowd. There were quite a few people in 4. It's not like it used to be, but
the population of Newcastle for sure.
It's the problem with Newcastle, or the track is that it's so big that you can have 25,000 people in it, and it looks like nothing because they're scattered out over.
It's the largest stadium in the world, so if it's not half full, it looks empty.
Right.
It's difficult to fill.
So, Mike, a listener, Kirsten Kronk, wants to know if you have ever met any big-time celebrities at the race.
Oh, yeah. I once blew off Gladiator.
Blew off?
Yeah, I saw Lady Gaga last year. I photographed Aerosmith. I've photographed, oh my gosh, the old standbys. You always had James Garner in the early days.
And that's a big Mark Brim fan right there. Mark Brim and James Garner.
Brim, that's right, yeah.
BFFs.
I actually took some pictures for Newman Haas and Paul Newman,
Dakota, do you know who Paul Newman is?
Yeah, well, I know the name.
Oh, my goodness.
I think that it's one of those things where if I saw a picture of him, I think I'd know who he was.
You know the Newman salad dressing?
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
That's him.
Yeah.
Movie star.
Old Blue Eyes.
Old movie star.
I ran into Letterman at the Grand Prix.
We saw that.
I was starstruck seeing Dave with the big beard.
So David Letterman is a car owner for the Rahal Letterman Lanigan racing team. So Graham Rahal,
Ball State graduate,
Takuma Sato, defending champion Takuma Sato, and Oriol Servia, one of my absolute favorites, are his drivers.
How thick is that man's beard?
It's thick.
It's intense.
It's thick, yeah. He looks like he just came out of Montana from the ranch.
And it's just so white, too.
Yeah, and he's a tall guy. He's taller than me. And so I was kind of shocked. I knew he was there. I saw him going in. I'm getting a bronze badge, and so before the Grand Prix, we're allowed to do a grid walk, which is amazing. I'm walking around on pit lane with the drivers up till the Star Spangled Banner. I was like, oh, Dave's around. I try not to be one of the people like forces my way or anything, but I saw him chatting with a guy. I was like, Dave's talking to people. So I ran up there and dished my brother and his girlfriend and got my picture with Dave.
Russell Crowe, the Kardashians. I can't tell you how many people over the years that we've got to photograph. I will tell you that they wanted me to photograph George W. Bush, George Bush Sr.
He came in this is how stupid I am. He came in 2003. I remember that very specifically.
Well, guess what? I missed him because I found Muhammad Ali.
There you go.
Muhammad Ali was my idol as a kid. You had Evel Knievel and Muhammad Ali, which is today's Michael Jordan.
The vice president came last year, and I'm afraid, as much as people like the vice president, he's going to screw up traffic again and probably show up again this year.
He popped up for practice day.
Friday, right? Or was he there Monday? He was there this week, I think.
Yeah, but I wasn't there that day, but some friends were, and they said it was a bit of a nightmare. Like they had cars parked on the pit lane, they couldn't get back to their garages, and they wouldn't let anything move in or out while he was in there talking. So even
the crews were screwed over by
I can't.
So he was on pit lane. I did see pictures where he and Doug Bowles and some others were walking around pit lane.
I know the turn 2 suites turn into a nightmare when he comes through. So.
I'm usually pretty good at talking my way through yellow shirts.
I'm going to take the H6 with us, and I'm going to try to get an interview with Mike Pence.
If you take the H6,
sir, Boss Hog of Liberty,
you're going to have to get some insurance on it.
You will probably wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Mike's been out at the track for 30 years. I put in our notes that you sit at the pit entrance, right? The attenuator for the pit entrance.
I am the first photographer at pit entrance. I actually wear a fire suit. So I'm on my third fire suit. They shrink.
They just keep getting smaller and smaller on you.
Absolutely.
Are you wearing a Simpson suit?
I have been, but this year I am not.
Uh-oh. Did you outgrow the Simpsons?
This year I am no longer in a Simpson, and I am in a red camel racing suit that I picked up at the racing industry show in Indianapolis this year and had it tailored so it actually fit.
Yeah, so a camel.
Yeah, red camel racing. Never heard of them.
Interesting. So not within your 30 years.
No,
they haven't been there.
No.
So is this an antique suit?
This is a brand new company.
Flame retardant?
So yeah, it's still. I hope it doesn't melt off of me.
So it's not Camel cigarettes.
No.
Oh, that's what I thought it was.
So
No.
you were involved. There's a guy named Mark Dismore who owns the go-kart track here in Newcastle.
Absolutely.
So your career and Mark Dismore's career have crossed over a couple of times.
Yep, I've been hit by several people down there. Dismore was
the big one.
Was the big one. Billy Boat hit that one year, and that was a really good year for me because that picture was used a lot because it was the first year that the styrofoam was there, and it looked like Christmas.
The first year for the safer barrier.
Yeah.
So it was probably 2002, 2003, somewhere in that range.
Together, man.
Yeah.
It was an AJ Foyt Conseco car. That's about all I can tell you. Darren Manning, Greg Gray, and Hornish came in there on me once, and I didn't see the third car and actually got a piece of brake rotor in the kidneys. That sort of hurt. That one hurt a lot.
Was that a race day crash?
Yeah, I still have that piece somewhere.
Not in you.
No.
It's in there somewhere.
No, it smoked me pretty good. I actually had Jack's camera and the Canon engineers make me, it looks like a foot pedal for a Gibson guitar, that I have a camera bolted to the wall now so that I can hit that when it gets too close in my big camera.
So you can drop down and still get the shot.
Were you standing there for the first Indy Grand Prix start? When Saavedra botched
You're probably
it.
on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I'm on the wrong side of that. I'm not going to let him hit me in the back. So.
The mayor
Yeah.
Mayor of Indianapolis got some cuts from that one. So.
Yeah, no.
I was sitting on top of the gasoline alley suites for that and watched that happen. It was the very first. It was 2012, I guess, or 2012, 2013. It was 2013. That was the first Grand Prix of Indianapolis, and IndyCar it took them a year to finally do their first standing start. This new car was going to be able to do standing starts.
It didn't work.
They did one. I think everybody, two cars started, and unfortunately one of those was the pole sitter.
Who wasn't normally a front runner.
He was a surprise pole sitter. Sebastian Saavedra.
And really his career's never rebounded that much. Great guy.
He got into the 500 once from a hospital bed.
Yeah.
His rookie year, yeah.
That
was 2010. He was with a brand new Brian Hurd Autosport team, and he made the race. That was the 2010 and 2011 bump days were unreal. I think two drivers withdrew their times from the race in 2010, and Sebastian Saavedra fell back into the race, and nobody else could run faster. So, have you always had that spot, or did you just show up there and they let you just start staying?
There was a period of time where it was called the slot, which was sort of in front of me, and that's where my Uncle Jim was for Dennis Firestone's crash and a lot of big fireballs over your head type crashes. I spent in 88 and 89, I was in turn 4. 90, I got the Pancho Carter crash in the Hardee's Special, and that was in the slot between 3 and 4. And then shortly thereafter, I bought a red fire suit and moved down into the pits, and I've been there ever since.
Wow. That's really interesting. I know before we did this episode, Zach told me that he was like, you have some really good stories from the race, and how you got there is really cool. And after talking to you, I think you were right, Zach. But Zach, is your mom Jane?
Yes, Jane is my mother.
So she commented in the live stream and said that she attended her first 500 in 1959.
She missed a few in there. That's the interesting thing about the 500 is going in. Donald Davidson, the track has a historian. It's got a really fascinating story where he just got obsessed with the race.
He's a genius.
And I've taken this class. He taught a class at IUPUI, which was actually at Speedway High School through IUPUI. But it's interesting when you go to, like I talk about, I try to go to events. You go to something for the track, and it's amazing how long people have been there. I talked to Doug Bowles at the Grand Prix, and I said, do you know what the longest tenure somebody has tickets for? He's like, no, but there's quite a few that go back to World War II. And I have one guy who I think this will be his 92nd 500 that he's going to be going to this year. So
his 92nd
92nd. Yeah, to really even to start to really impress anybody on how many times you need to have gone, it needs to be like probably 50 or 60.
That's because you have to be over 50. I've been. Well, we'll get into it in a minute. That's towards the end here as to how many times people have been. We'll get into that. All right, so let's start to talk about some of the other stuff that goes into the month of May, because we've touched on a little bit of it. I made a list here, and you guys tell me if there's anything I'm leaving out here. But it's a whole month, and the festival's the whole month, and the all of the things that build to the race. Zach did the mini marathon.
Yep. Well, there's just I like the end part.
We have yes.
Life changed forever.
Zach did the mini marathon, and then they have princesses. So every driver in the race basically is a princess. There's 33 princesses, and we have one from Henry County this year.
We do. Try high.
Try high. It's Katie Poff. Katie Poff. One of my Henry County 4-H alumni, and personal friend of Dakota Davis. So yeah, Katie's a princess. So we're very proud of that. It's exciting.
Also a butler.
And she's attending Butler University, indeed. You have a parade on national TV. So the Rose Bowl, are you familiar with the Rose Bowl, Dakota?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the
Rose Bowl parade.
Yeah, the bowling alley here in Newcastle.
Yeah. It used to be owned by the Rutherford family. No, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. They have the Rose Parade on New Year's Day.
Yeah, I know what it is. I was just joking.
Right.
Of
course you were.
That's why I laughed.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
So the Indy 500 has a parade on Saturday. This Saturday coming up, they've got a parade where all the drivers get in it and they wave, and whatever celebrities that they've brought in, if they bring in Guy Fieri or whoever the celebrities are for the Victor Oladipo, the pace car driver, they will all be in a parade on Saturday, and that's on national TV. So it's on WTHR, and then it's also on NBCSN. So they're going to have a big parade on Saturday. On race day, you've got all these things, this pageantry that happens. You have back home again in Indiana, our special. We were testing the camera the other when we got the audio, the new soundboard the first time. We played Jim Cornelius and singing "Back Home Again in Indiana." That's happened since I don't even know when. I know Jim Neighbors sang it from this 1972 to almost the current year, but that song has been an institution at the Speedway forever. So that's a big deal before the race. So you'll hear that. I won't be here to guide you through it, so we're doing it now because I'll be in my seats and you're going to be in the infield. And then it's Memorial Day weekend, so you hear taps, which is it's Memorial Day, so you're going to hear taps played. Yeah, and the place will be. You have 300,000 people that go completely silent.
That's awesome. That is really cool.
At the end of Back Home Again in Indiana, there's going to be about 250,000 balloons released. I don't know how many it is. It's going to be the most balloons you've ever seen in your mind.
A lot of balloons.
Is that good?
It depends on which group you talk to.
That sounds.
If you're a fan of 500, it's a beautiful sight.
Yes,
sounds dangerous.
They're biodegradable. Every one of them has a little note in it.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about power lines.
They all go somewhere. They're Ohio's problem.
They might block out the light for the solar farm next to the track, though.
Could be a big issue for New County.
Last year, there's a flyover. There was a big bomber last year. This giant-ass bomber.
It's something different all the time.
It's always different. So last year, it was a bomber out of Missouri, and the flight crew came to our tailgate in the infield after the race.
Oh, that's awesome.
They showed up, and they drank beers with us. So we hung out with them for probably an hour or so until the big rainstorm came last year and destroyed the entire infield. We had the flyover guys. And then when you get the actual cars started,
don't forget Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, that's right. The national anthem this year is going to be Kelly Clarkson. Have you heard of Kelly Clarkson?
Yeah, I have.
She's a thing. And then the guy from the Ron Howard racing movie, he's going to wave the green flag.
That has to be the scariest thing to do, to stand over the top of 33 cars.
In front of 350,000 people and not drop the flag.
And going underneath you.
It's Thor. Yeah. Do you know who the guy who played Thor?
Yeah.
That dude?
Yep.
He's gonna wave the green flag.
I had to ask my kids. I didn't know who that was.
Go watch Rush. He's great in Rush. He plays, plays
Rush, yeah.
He's fantastic in that.
Yeah.
Did you watch Rush?
Yeah, I've seen Rush.
With the cars?
You're not talking
Maybe
Geddy
a different
Lee?
Rush.
Yeah, Rush
might be a different... This is a play that I'm thinking of.
No,
this is...
okay.
This was Niki Lauda and...
James Hunt.
Yeah. 1970s.
It's a Ron Howard movie.
Yeah. Ron Howard, the guy that made, Arrested Development and Apollo 13. So well worth watching. So once they fire the engines, which I've been on the grid one time or been at the grid and watched the cars come off the line. It's unbelievable. Just when they fire the engine, those cars go from nothing and they all pull out. That is exhilarating.
You ought to be 15 feet away.
I know. I'm saying. I sat on my first race, 2003. I was in the pit lane stands. So I was right behind the Andretti pits. I was right behind Dan Weldon's pit in 2003. So I watched the cars fire and I sat in the front.
Can Jeremiah take the Mevo and you get him in press pass? I think that's on
the video rights are ABCs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I only have still right available.
We can only work in stills. That's okay. We'll put that on Shutter. Honestly, I don't want to have to work. I don't want this thing to be my job. I want to just go hang out and enjoy the race. So the cars...
The Boss Hog doesn't stop, Jer.
I know. Always searching content. So they fire the cars and they do a parade lap, and then you see all the cars at about 100 miles an hour, and they form up into these perfect rows of three. What's that like?
In that 100 mile an hour, you see 4,000 hot dog wrappers and everything blowing around that looks like a small tornado as they come through. It's pretty incredible.
So this is the only part of the race where I need you to actually leave our campsite and go stand on the mountains and just watch. I want you to watch from before they do the balloon release. So from taps until lap 5. And then you can go back. But this is the part you need to pay attention to.
I plan on following Nick Deutsch.
Do whatever Nick does.
Yeah. I plan on following him around.
About lap 30, you can bring me some water or Gatorade. That'd be really nice.
I'll go find you.
Yeah.
Good luck. He'll be a mile away.
My seats are between 3 and 4 top row. It's pretty interesting to see him come down out of the back straightaway, go around the turns, and then when they finally start, it's like watching somebody take a video and going from play to fast forward to see even just a bit I see of him accelerating the acceleration off of turn 4. And it should be better this year because the body kits now, they're faster accelerating than they were. So
and not that rear wing to get in the way. It looks like a skateboard.
There's nothing to
rear wing.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing them pass each other. I just think that's going to be an incredible feat.
It happens fast.
That's going to be an interesting thing to see this year because that's the thing with the aero kits is that if they're in a group of 2 or 3, evidently passing's pretty easy. I saw that yesterday. I went to the practice yesterday, but if there's a large group of them, evidently if you're in the back, it is not a good place to be.
Yeah,
Ed Carpenter's qualification will be a great thing for him to not be in the back.
So I know a little bit about the way that the aerodynamics of NASCAR works. And
nothing like that.
So it's not like that at all. You don't want to ride kind of like in the middle there for a little while.
You want to be second or third in line. You can make a pass. If you're second or third, you can probably make a pass as long as your tires aren't absolute trash.
The problem with these cars is that the front wing, they're using a bit more aero grip than NASCAR would. NASCAR's usually mechanical grip, so just what's on the car. Right. So evidently, when it gets farther back, it takes all the air off the front wing, and they just don't have any ability to turn. So it makes it real hard.
You don't have the side draft like you do in NASCAR. Okay. The side draft is turbulence.
So it'll be interesting to see if they continue to stay in a long line, which is what they typically do, or if they're going to break up, naturally try to break up into smaller groups so that they can kind of manipulate the field with themselves. But that'll be the thing. Everybody's kind of curious as to how that is. But I know yesterday in groups of 2 or 3, they were passing a lot. But if it's in 33 of them at the same time, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
And I think there will be rabbits. There'll be a group of 2 or 3 cars that get ahead, and then another group of 2 or 3, and another group of 2 or 3. I don't think you'll have groups of 12 or 15. I think that spells trouble. Right. I don't think they have the stability. But if you really look at the guys that are comfortable in the car, they're comfortable. They're comfortable regardless of where they're at. And some of them are on the ragged edge. I mean, I don't, whether you love Connor Daly or hate Connor Daly was on the edge to even get that car in the show. I mean, he was all over the place. That wheel was turning, and you look at a guy like TK in what has always been subpar equipment with AJ Foyt that now has 8 or 9 team crew engineer people straight from the number 3 or 4 Ganassi cars. You know, they're now competitive, and he looks absolutely comfortable. You know, there are a lot of different guys that do not have the formula for comfort that are going to be in this race.
It's gonna be interesting to see how it develops. So we'll run the race, and then once it's over, there's a couple other big traditions that happen. And do you get to go to Victory Lane, Mike?
It all depends who it is, whether or not I go or not.
If it's a Fuzzy's car, you're going.
If it's the Fuzzy's car, I will be there. If it's Marco, I'll be there. If it's a Penske, I probably won't walk down there. You know,
why bother? He's done it 17 times before.
You know, it's. I was there when Dario won. I was there when Weldon won on the J.R. Hildebrand crash. You know, I've gone down there. I don't reserve a spot, or I don't. AP has like 20 people down there. I don't go compete with them. The shot I try to get is when they come into the pits right there in front of me, pumping a fist.
Yep.
I mean, I have had that
last year.
I had Sato last year. I had Montoya. That's the shot that has been my money shot the last few years that I really work hard to get.
So once you have a winner, they will come to Victory Lane, and you'll have these bagpipes playing. The Gordon Pipers will be playing. The car will come into Victory Lane, and the driver will take off their helmet, and then the car owner and the driver will be there, and ABC will have a microphone on their face, and some guy from Borg Warner will put a wreath over them, and they're going to be given some milk by the dairy farmers, and they drink milk.
Yuck. Gross.
You choose skim milk 2% or buttermilk.
Ooh.
And it's the
can't
tradition.
do chocolate milk?
I don't know if they do chocolate milk.
Evidently, it used to be an option, and some of the drivers have chosen it, but no driver has ever won having chosen that. And I don't think I've heard. I think I've heard it's not an option anymore. Somebody's seen the list. Like they asked.
Yeah,
before,
it needs to be white.
They have a list of. They ask every driver at some point. I'm assuming after they qualify.
Obviously, they wear more than they drink.
So that's the thing is in the last few years. I don't know if Weldon started it or Elio did. They drink the milk, and then they just go ahead and dump the rest of the bottle on their head, Dakota. Yeah. So you get this shot of milk coming off of the driver's head.
I'm out. I'll never be an IndyCar racer.
It was low risk.
And then imagine you're still in that fire suit because you get to do a bunch of press.
Yeah, you're going to spend the next 4 hours doing interviews.
With sour milk on you.
That's disgusting.
So
I will tell you that fire suit is the most disgusting thing that I've ever had on my body after a long, hard race.
The next thing that'll happen is the trophy will come out, and this trophy is worth millions of dollars.
3.4, they said this weekend.
It's now over 6 feet tall. Every year they take the driver's face, and it's a sterling silver cutout of your face that goes on the trophy, and it's on it for the rest of time.
So why Why is it so expensive? Is it solid gold?
It's silver, but it's
silver,
one of a kind.
Oh, it's silver.
It's the effort that is put in by the artists that make the faces.
It's the Stanley Cup or the Daytona 5. Not the Daytona 5. That's nowhere close. The Vince Lombardi Trophy. It's among the biggest trophies in the world. And there's only one. You get a baby Borg. It's a Borg Warner Trophy. You get a baby Borg to take home with you. It's a little tiny miniature replica of it, but your face goes on the permanent one.
They started that fairly recently because I know some of the drivers that won back in the day really want baby Borgs that don't have them. I think they got Pernelli Jones one and some of the other big.
They made some for AJ after the fact, I think.
AJ gets what AJ wants.
Yep, absolutely.
There's people in the chat saying somebody didn't drink the milk. That was Emerson Fittipaldi.
He was
1993.
He's an Orange Grove owner, so he drank orange juice.
There we go. Hey, I could be an IndyCar driver now.
I think he drank the milk too.
There's no Fuzzy's vodka in the orange juice.
I would say,
okay,
listen, you can have a White Russian.
That was a faux pas that caught him up a little bit after that. People weren't real happy about it.
So then the other big thing that's happened is, and this came from Dale Jarrett and the NASCAR guys, after you're done with everything in Victory Lane, you go out to the bricks and you kiss the bricks.
NASCAR tradition at Boleto?
When I'm walking through pit lane and I'm on a mission because I need to be somewhere or photograph something, and there are 20,000 fans on their hands and knees kissing the bricks, it gets pretty annoying quickly.
You don't stop and kiss the bricks every time you cross them?
Nah, I can't say that I've ever done that.
So, growing up as a child in South Henry School Corporation, every year they do a thing for the 5th and 6th graders called the Titan 500.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what it is, Jeremiah, do you know about the Titan 500?
Yeah, Katie Poff was out there last week. You guys had she was at it.
Yeah, so it's a bit.
Our Henry County Princess.
You have teams, you pick teams, and then you deck out a big wheel. And the big thing is, like the biggest trick is to put duct tape on the tires, and that really helps you get some traction on the asphalt, and you can get going in them.
So you guys are race engineers.
Yep, and that's how we did it. But it has to have plastic wheels. You can't put rubber wheels on it. That's like the one stipulation.
Kind of jealous because I've heard about that because I've run with a guy who also is at the track quite a bit, Casey Carmichael, who's on the school board at Tri, and his son's always doing that one day that we're over at the track. Yeah. And then a lot of days you're at the track, like oddball practice days, and there's field trips. All these schools take field trips to the track. I was like, I never went to a school that got to do a field trip.
That was my first trip to the track. Was 1995. The year I think I went between the first and the second qualifying weekend. And Blue River Valley went out there. So 5th or 6th grade, probably 6th grade, and I took a trip out there, and that's kind of what hooked me. I was a racing fan, so I was probably 12 years old and got to go for the first time, and then didn't get to go back until I was until 2003 probably as an adult.
The track's a lot different.
It was very different then, yeah.
It's like
it changes daily.
After 2000, they had the Formula One track was added, and the Master Control Tower turned into the Pagoda again. And then since then, you've had the F1 garages added, and that's probably the biggest change in my memory at the Speedway since that time.
Yeah,
I remember the old Pagoda. Not the original Pagoda, but the old one. You know, it's always changed. I mean, Gasoline Alley changes just about every year. It's the media center is incredible now compared to what we used to do. You know, I used to have a guy that would come around on a moped and pick up rolls of film and take them back and soup them. And 3 hours after the race, I'd find out whether an image was used or not.
Find out if something's useful or not.
You know, now my 15-year-old kid can run down there and hand it to him, and it's already on USA Today or on the Los Angeles Times before the race is over. You know, you're 100 laps in, and if there's a crash in the first 30 laps, it's already on.
It's online. On every website.
Yeah, it's technology has changed.
So are you pulling for a Graham Rahal to hit the wall at a turn 4 like you did back in the day?
Graham Rahal has hit the wall just about every year he's been there right in front of me.
I was going to say.
Between Jimmy Kite, Graham Rahal, and Billy Boat, Old McKown's made a lot of money over the years.
That spot right there, 2009, 2010, 2008, 8, 9, I think Graham hit the wall his first couple of years right there.
Scott Sharp always hit it there, too.
Except for the year he crashed in turn 1 when he had the pole.
That was ugly.
It's right about where my field of view ends for my seat, so I usually see the donut on the wall, and then just like, well, something just happened.
All of a sudden, the wall's not white anymore.
Hope McKown's still breathing. Yeah.
So, all right. Let's talk about your first time. You don't remember your first time you went to the track? Because this is Dakota's first one, so I want to try to paint the picture.
I bet I was 10 or 11, and a tradition then was we would get up, leave at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we would go in, and we came in off 38th Street. I'm a north sider, north 40 side of the track. I don't spend much time on the south side. And we would get off on 38th Street, dive down Falcon Drive, get us between 34th and 30th, then we'd sit on Falcon Drive, and they set a mortar off when the gates open, so that's when you know it's time to jump out on 30th Street and get in line. And we would sit in the North 40, and there'd be 25 of us. We'd do a draw, cut up the paper, pay $1 in, do a little pool, and then we'd fix Spanish eggs, which is eggs with salsa in them, and then regular eggs for people like me, and then fix some little smokies.
Salsa's just too much.
Yeah, I'm just not that big on that. And then, but then, you know, everybody had their little thing that they brought. So somebody would bring the eggs, somebody would bring the smokies, somebody would bring chocolate milk, orange juice,
I
all
love
stuff.
little smokies.
And then just chill out in the North 40 until it was time to head up to the stands. And so that's what we did for years. And then a friend got us into camping. You know, I remember thinking, who does he know that we got this deal? We were camped right outside the track. And then I got into that when I got a camper. And so I've been camping at the race for about 12 years, probably 10 or 12 years.
So you camped in the infield for the GP.
I got real lucky. people know enough about my fandom of the track that when that popped up on Instagram last year, I think they had Graham Rahal with a camper with Doug Bowles in the infield say, hey, we're going to do camping for the Grand Prix. It's a road course thing. And I was like, I'm in. And so I hit up a bunch of people, and my brother bit too. And so we got in there, and that was pretty amazing. We're camped right on the Holman Strait. Cars driving by for breakfast, and wake up, and there's cars driving by, and we got a private tour up into the pagoda and spent some time on the Yard of Bricks that night. And then they had some drivers come by. So Johnny Rutherford, Tony Kanaan, Connor Daly came by near the campsite. And then
they hung out in the campsite with you.
They came into our little area. There's like 4 different camping areas. They came to ours. The coolest thing that year was it was last year. I think we were on the news like 7 times because we had Dave Calabro camped around the corner. Doug Bowles was camped right there. And so the news would just come by constantly and was like every morning we'd have an interview, every evening another interview. And then some of them were using B-roll of our campsite. But yeah, that was...
Somebody go talk to Chuck Loft, and he's out there again, lonely.
But yeah, it was a little quieter in the infield this year, but as far as the media, they didn't care. It was the second year we were there. But you go in the track, and I almost never leave the entire weekend. It's fantastic.
In the early 90s, I would go in at midnight. Uncle Jim and I would go in at midnight, and then we would walk out on the inside of the fence and watch all the drunks on Georgetown Road. That was the first education I had of what the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was all about. And then you'd try to sleep 2 or 3 hours and get up and go to work,
So there's 2 things that happen. There's people like Zach and I go for a race.
Yep.
And we watch the racing. But
not
we
if
also,
you're in turn 3. You're not going for the race.
I embrace it. I also like to have some fun in the infield. But then I do have seats. I go up and I go to my seats and I'll watch it. But turn 3 infield is a different experience. Dakota, don't dress too fancy.
Is it the snake pit on just a mile down?
So the snake pit thing is that's an interesting question. That's complicated. Like everything else, it's complicated. Turn 1
ever changing.
Turn 1 used to be where the snake pit
The
was.
Snake Pit now is kind of like the Broad Street Cruise in Newcastle. Like it used to be this kind of thing that was its own thing, and then it went away because bad things happened there.
Yeah.
And then now they brought it back as another ticket to sell and
As a ticketed event.
Yeah, and so it's the Snake Pit now is not what the Snake Pit was.
It's more techno and stuff now.
You are going to what in the old days would have been the Snake Pit, turn 3, infield, the infield party. That's where we're going to be. All right, we're going to be at the infield party. But now there's a thing that they call the Snake Pit where you have an armband, and you're already too old for it, Dakota. You needed to be like 18 to 21 to care. You're far too old and mature. But they will have 25 or 30,000 people shoved into a tiny little
It's tiny.
It is tiny, and it's going to be.
I saw them
you would
setting up
have
this
10
week.
people in the space of the 4 of us at this. It is unbelievable. And it's this huge party. They'll have water guns spraying, and it's going to be an EDM event.
Yeah, that's not what I'm about.
So that you'll see them, and they will be very close to us. But we're going to be more of the. We are more like a college football
We scoff at them.
tailgating.
Degenerates.
Yeah. You will be covered in dirt when our time is over. You will be completely covered in dirt.
I'm not big on that. I'm not big on dirt.
It's yeah. You'll be
Good luck on that.
You'll be the most grimy you've ever been in your life. Brace for that.
I doubt that.
And you're not wearing a fire suit.
Hope we get some rain on Saturday to knock the dust down.
But not too much rain, or it's going to be pure mud.
No, not like the last couple of years. No, we don't need that much rain.
So yeah, when you go, what are you going to wear? Have you put any thought into what you're wearing?
I haven't put any thought at all into it. No, I'm probably going to wear I have these type of they're like swim trunks, but they're they're called hybrid shorts. So they're for swimming, but they also have like pockets and belt loops and things. So I figured I'd wear those because they are the most cooling clothes that I have.
It may rain on us. It's going to be 85.
Zach, are you going to wear your hybrid shorts?
No. Dude, the dress code in turn 3 and for the most of the party people think Pat McAfee.
Yeah, it's
patriotic sleeves, preferably not. And then
more Joe
guns out.
Dirt-esque.
Yeah, if you cut some jeans off into shorts, even better.
I have a tank top that's a little bit too small for me now.
That's what you wear.
Perfect.
That's it.
Matter of fact, I saw Pat yesterday.
I would wear a schmedium.
I saw Pat at the track yesterday, and Pat was in a tank top with a denim vest and like Chucks and some weird glasses. So he looked classic. He was on pit lane like that, so sleeveless on pit lane.
Nice.
Mike, what was your first year? Do you remember? 82 was the first year
Well,
you went?
I'm sure I went as a Parker student in second grade, which was a long time ago. But 82 was the first year I really remember, and I was a sophomore or junior in high school, and I spoke about that earlier. But I walked back in the garage area and was taking pictures of this guy with really long hair. And Donald Davidson was standing behind me, and he goes, "Do you know who that is?" in his British accent. And it was Desiree Wilson, which was the second woman to ever try to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. And that's my first real recollection of I have arrived and I want to photograph this forever. So
but you thought Desiree was a dude.
I thought Desiree was a dude.
Well, it's amazing about race
She's
fans.
a European dude.
What's amazing about race fans is that some of those people you don't know who they are necessarily. So it's interesting to see who people don't know who they are. And sometimes you'll get some celebrities, like pop culture celebrities that pop into the track, and race fans don't know or care who they are. I saw a yellow shirt yelling at Ashley Judd once to get out of the way at Gasoline Alley, and she was married to Dario Franchitti at the time. And someone's like, "That's Ashley Judd," and he's like, "Oops, sorry."
I don't care who she is. She's got to move.
I can top that. I get very perturbed when fans are down around me, because now anybody can buy a badge and get there if they spend enough money. But I'm down there by myself, and cars are coming through, and it's pretty serious. I mean, your car going 240 in the straightaway past me, and this guy taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, man, that's a really cool lens. Can I look through it?" And I'm like, "What the heck are you talking about, dude?" And I let him look through it, and all I know is that he has a very well-endowed woman standing beside him, and it was iced tea and cocoa. And I thought iced tea was a cool, refreshing drink. I didn't know who iced tea was at all. But, you have those celebrities down there. I've had Mellencamp down there with me. They seem to go to that north end where I'm at. I had Jessica Simpson one time ask me which car I drove because I was in my fire suit. She really didn't understand much about the Indianapolis 500, but Russell Crowe was probably my best one.
There's a lot of corporate people there. It's kind of interesting. On Carb Day, it'll be real fun. It's real fun to walk around the garage area and listen to people talk and see.
That have no idea what they're talking about. Yeah.
Papa Roach, the band Papa Roach, we ran across them one time. I had no idea who they were, but they were playing. It was like, it was one of the days they had a concert. It was probably a poll day or something, and they were going to finish up with a concert. And we had.
You didn't know who Papa Roach was?
No, I didn't know, but we were in the same suites. Like, I would be, for the longest time, we had a connection where Kennametal was a sponsor of the Ganassi team. So they would usually have one of the two, poll day or bump day. We would be in the Ganassi suite for the day. So I would have access to pit road that day and garage pass, and would be in there. So you would have people in the Gasoline Alley suites all the time. So it was no big deal to see the Ganassi drivers or the family members or team members, or the next suite over all the time had Ari Leindike in it. He was there constantly. But yeah, Papa Roach was there one time, and I had no idea who they were, but they were hanging out with us.
I saw a group of people a few years ago, and you can usually tell when a celebrity's on the tarmac before the start of the race when I'm out there photographing, because this large congregation gets around them, and you're like, who the hell is that, I had Dave Hester from Storage Wars, the Yup guy. And I'm like, man, Did they really pay this guy to come here? Yup! I had to photograph Dave Hester. It's probably the one of 4 photographs he ever had taken. Dave Hester from Storage Wars.
Storage Wars is one of those shows where
it's addicting.
I watch it, and as I'm watching the first episode that I'm watching, I'm like, this show is so stupid. It's all planned out. I hate this. And then it's like the first episode ends, and I'm like, I'm going to watch another. I hate this show.
Sort of like a plane crash. You've got to watch it through to the end.
Yep.
So the first year I went was 2003, and that was a very cool race because I sat right down on pit lane. My dad won tickets from some internet deal from Bryant Heating and Cooling. So Tony Kanon's group had accidentally set us up, so we sat behind the Ganassi guys. That was Dan Weldon. He was a rookie, or his second year, and he wound up on his lid. He crashed, and he wound up on the roof, and that was a 1-2 finish for Penske. Gilles de Ferran beat Elio by nothing. So that was cool. And then I didn't come back until 2006, and I sat in turn 2, and Marco had a huge lead. And we didn't have a good monitor.
And Sam
Hornish passed him
at the end.
It was the first time that they had ever had a last lap pass in the 500, and it came off of turn 4. Sam Hornish Jr. passes Marco Andretti, and he gets by him in a quarter of the straightaway. It was just like,
I have to tell you, I cried a little.
Unreal. And then I missed 07 because it was going to rain. I said, the hell with it, I'm not doing that. And Dario won in the rain, and then I've been to every race since then. 08 to now, I've not missed.
Zach, we're here with novices.
I know.
It's going to rain. We're not going.
Well, I think did Dario.
Well, that was early. I'd go now.
I think Dario won a couple.
Dario
never won a 500 under green.
That's right. Yeah, Dario won. He won in 20.
I remember Victory Circle was in the
2010.
rain one time with Dario. And Buddy Rice one time was
2004. There were tornadoes with Buddy.
Yeah.
I missed that race as well.
I remember I went to Tuesday too. I remember that. I didn't go to school one day.
So, but I've seen just incredible finishes. Like I've gone years that have gotten me hooked. Right, like it was 2010 with Mike.
Obviously, wasn't in the early IRL years that got you hooked with Jarrett Schrader and
no. It was right after they got when the series came back together in 08 was kind of when I was a permanent fixture and attending and going. It's been a healthy series and it's gotten better, but then 2011 the finish where Dan Weldon wins. That was crazy. Ryan Hunter-Ray in the 2012 race, I think it was 2013. Well, we had all of those passes in 2012 and 2013. And then 2015, the first year where we had the aero kits. That was the 1 year where it was kind of a crap race, but it was Penske and Ganassi back and forth, and Montoya won.
It's part of the Indianapolis 500 fiber. I mean, I watched Michael Andretti lead more laps than anybody in the history of the Speedway and never win the race. You had Zanardi and Vassar back in the day for Target Chip Ganassi that
should have been there and they never can.
And never can.
Yeah.
You have all of these guys. The only guy that really came through was Rick Mears. You thought he was going to win and he won. When we go to predictions today, I mean, it's a pretty simple thing to say one of the 4 Penske's can win this race.
All right, so let's do it this way. We're going to go. I'm going to have you give us. We're going to go around and give predictions, and I'm going to have you give us who you think, and then give me a dark horse, which means you can't pick a Penske. So give me who's your one, and then your A and your B.
Addie McKown. I'm going to say Ed Carpenter. No, I really, really pay attention to how the cars come through the corner and see who's comfortable. There are 4 guys that are comfortable to me. Will Power, Ed Carpenter, Tony Kanaan, and Marco Andretti. Those are the 4 most comfortable drivers. My dark horse is Spencer Pigot because he has just been on the gas and done very, very well. He has good equipment. He has a good team. That's my dark horse.
So who's your 1A? Give me one.
I'm going to go with Kanaan.
All right, TK. All right. Writing them down. We're recording this, so we're going to know. Zach, who's your 1A? This is like a fantasy draft where you got you could spend $25 on a driver and $5 on a driver. So give me your stud and
that's kind of hard to. You kind of have to wonder at some point. Will Power's going to kind of put it together.
Will Power is the hands-on favorite
because he was a road course guy. He's picked up ovals very well. He really wants to win Indy. All the Penske guys really do, though. So I tried to. I do like Tony Kanaan for it because.
Now if Tony wins in a Foyt car, giving him his 6th win.
A Foyt car, but one of the interesting things about him when he moved there, though, he took his engineering staff with him. I think Cowden.
Yeah,
his spotters are Ganassi guys. I saw Joe Schneider last night, who has been on Max Chilton's car for Ganassi, and now he's wearing ABC clothes. There are a lot of Larry Foyt has taken what Target dismantled and put a lot of those people in that position. They are no longer a second-tier team.
I would say TKB pick 1, pick 2. I bet dark horse, and I don't know if this is a dark horse the way he's driven this year. Wickens,
Robert Wickens,
because
he screwed up on Monday. He's going to be in a car he's going to have an hour on the track.
But there's the thing going where there's two types of drivers at Indy: those who have hit the wall and those who haven't hit the wall. And kind of infamously with Kurt Busch a few years ago, he hit the wall, and then he drove a heck of a race because he learned where that limit was. And I think Wickens said he's like, that was a limit. He said he hadn't seen the car yet. It hadn't oversteered on him yet. So, and Wickens is a rookie, but he's far from masterful. Yeah. And now he's got Hinch's engineering crew are going to be helping him out. And
he's got every bit of SPM on his side, right?
And they've got a chip on their shoulder. And one of them is Lena Gade, who is an engineer in WEC
for Formula One
and for the LMP1 program. Yeah. And so...
those are good picks. Wickens has been a podium guy a few times this year.
He should have won. He could have won twice. He should have won the first race of the year.
He got punted.
He got Rossied.
All right. So I've got. I've said the beginning of the month, and I think we're all going to have Chevys. I don't know what Dakota's going to come up with. If he's going to have names here in a minute, but I'm going to go Joseph Newgarden. Newcastle trained him, but series champion, Penske car. He's been solid all month. He was darn good when he was driving for Ed and had some very, very good races. I think this is the year Newgarden gets his win. So I'm going to say if I'm picking a 1A,
he's Penske's lead horse right now too. In a lot of ways, he's the confidence guy for them this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go Newgarden. I wouldn't be shocked to see any Penske win. Pagenaud is probably the least likely of the Penskes for me, but any of the Penskes could win the race. And then my dark horse, I watched him work in practice Monday, and it may be a little bit of an emotional favorite, but I like J.R. Hildebrand in the Dreyer Reinbold car.
I chatted with him. I go to Mid Ohio, and Mid Ohio is interesting, and I've talked to him for a few minutes. He's a great guy to talk to, and he's obviously got some knowledge from Ed Carpenter racing. And
I mean, he's been a top 10 guy. He finished second as a rookie. Obviously, that whatever happened,
he could have won if. That was
if he'd had turned left.
That was
it's all Charlie Kimball's fault.
That was a lot in it. Interestingly, I heard an interview with him where they said, "Have you ever talked to Charlie about that?" And if people don't know, he was leading as a rookie, and then Charlie Kimball was in the inside, and he didn't get enough information. He thought that Charlie Kimball would run out of gas, but it turned out Charlie Kimball was trying to get past, so he didn't have to run another lap because then he would have run out of gas, and he put it in the wall. But smart enough kid to keep his foot in the gas, and
he finished second.
I think he got Chevelle for that for his troubles from his owner at the time.
So that's the Salesforce car, by the way. Our friend Jesse Riddle works in the Salesforce tower for the Salesforce.
That's right,
people.
He does.
I don't know. That's my. I'm not saying he's going to win, but he's my solid top 5. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a solid team for a one-off team. Dry and Reinbold they've done a great job. Karen was at the top of the charts yesterday with a number of nobody else. I mean, it was a big toe, but nobody else.
Sage Karam has had a lot of really bad luck, but he can stand on the gas.
Sage is I would not be surprised at all to see Sage in the top 10 if he can make 200 laps.
Right.
That's the deal. I mean, his rookie year, he went to the front to the back 2 or 3 times in a Dreyer and Reinbold car. That team's going to be back as a full-time team at some point, I think. All right, Dakota, do you have any idea at all?
Yep. I have
AJ is not in the race. Okay.
My number 1 pick is Pippa Mann.
Nope.
My number 2 pick is James Hinchcliffe.
That one may actually come through if money that comes along.
It'd be interesting to see what the Vegas odds are on Hinchcliffe, and they bet on him now, and he pops into the race and come out smelling like roses. But if they bought his way in, which I don't think they would, he would come in with the vendetta. It would be pretty interesting to see how motivated he would be.
There's a kid we haven't talked about, and that's Matty Laced.
He's a rookie, 19 years old, younger than Dakota, Brazilian who's in the team car to Tony Kanaan. And
DeMello looks pretty strong too.
For not knowing he was going to be in the car till the week before the race, or the week before they start practicing. But Laced looks really interesting in that he's kind of reminds me of a Daniel Ricciardo from Formula One. He seems pretty carefree, pretty loose. He's not concerned. He's not like really worried about things.
His eyes are the size of silver dollars, even in a golf cart in Indianapolis. I mean, he is just amazed at what this brings.
So it's going to be exciting. You guys picked a lot of Chevys. Tony Kanaan, by the way, when they do the driver introductions on Sunday, you're going to have huge ovations. You're going to have a huge ovation for Elio Castroneves. You're going to have a huge ovation for Ed Carpenter, the pole sitter, and Tony Kanaan.
Don't forget Danica.
Well, and then Danica is going to be mixed. You're going to have some boo birds, and you're
There
going to have
was
some
no
love.
mixing.
There'll be a lot of noise when
There's-
Danica
yeah,
is announced.
yeah.
There was no
It'll be one way or
mixing?
the other.
No, there was no mixing.
Okay,
Nobody,
here's the
you
thing.
didn't hear anybody
Pandemonium.
scream, "It's not her fault" from a distance?
She's played that a lot better this year.
She's not very smart of a person. I listened to her on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Well, her biggest issue was a couple of years ago, and I remember I was one of those weekends I was there, and they said, "Well, what's going on?" And she's like, "I don't know, it's not my fault." And she bus-tossed her team, which is win or lose. Like James Hinchcliffe afterwards says, win or lose, he's like, we win as a team, we lose as a team. It's a team effort, and you don't bus-toss your team on the PA.
Joe Rogan was asking her, he's like, "So have you always been really interested in cars?" And she's like, I've never really been a car person. Never really been interested.
She
he
is
says,
very different. She's not your typical
he goes, "What
racer.
kind of car do you drive?" And she said, "I don't know. It's like a Tahoe or an Escalade or something like that."
I'll tell you what's interesting, though, is listening to interviews with drivers. Now, some of them, they say it and then they don't really mean it. Some of them aren't really car people. They're drivers. They don't care about their street cars.
They just drive.
Now, I did have, I think I listened to an interview with Ross. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not really that into street cars." And I go, "What do you drive?" And he drives like an almost 900 horsepower Audi sedan.
Yeah, he's
So it's
not
like-
really big into
So he's
it,
not
though.
real big, but then you got Tony Kanaan, usually has some nice cars and stuff. But some of those guys really don't care about street cars because once they have a race car, what's the point? But
Yeah.
I mean, she was a karter. She can drive, and she's very controversial. She'll bring up some.
But when you walk through the garage area and you see the gross amount of people that want to be in contact with her, it's almost the Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti is one of the greatest guys in the world, but he comes off on TV wrong. There's no way about it. And even Marco is that way a little bit. But, just the people that want to touch is just amazing. It's incredible. Addie said that she has the utmost respect for Danica that she didn't have before this month started just because of the amount. I mean, there's kids handing you drawings of her.
She catches a lot of flack for the way she handles fans, but I think she handles more fans than anybody else
She
really has
handles
to handle. So.
10 times the amount of fans.
In the peak of her IndyCar existence, 2009, 2010, 2011, when she was at Andretti, she was always the person, Dakota, that was most distant. She literally had walls put up where they would be behind, they would be in their garages with the doors closed, or when she was in a golf cart, they had the sides up on the golf cart, just to give her some distance or separation.
I believe it.
Where you see somebody like Jay Howard, and they're just, they're walking along, talking to you. They don't, they're just as happy to be talking to you as
GP
anybody
weekend,
else.
Jack Harvey, I think I saw him like 3 or 4 times just wandering around the track and nobody's talking to him. There's nobody around him. And like, I almost felt bad. Like I should have said, "Hey, good luck," just so he knew that I knew he was a driver.
Yeah.
Because he was just in his Honda thing with his backpack on. And like at one point we were doing a Q&A with Tony Kanaan and Kyle Kaiser, who's a rookie, in front of the Pagoda Plaza, and there's like a couple of the camper people standing there. And here goes Jack Harvey, just kind of wandered by and looked over. And I'm like, he didn't even think he was important enough to walk over and say and ask, "Do we have any questions or anything?" So yeah, she's at the other end of that spectrum. She can't go anywhere, and she handles it, I think, as best she can. I walked by her pit yesterday, and you had to squeeze against the fence to get by her pit area because there's 80 or 100 people standing there trying to get pictures of her, and she's just putting her helmet on. So
there we go. All right, well, we're about at the end. I really have enjoyed this. I don't know if any of the other listeners did, but it's a me show, and it's a Dakota show, and it's a Mike show, and it's a Zach show. We had fun about it. So
I can't wait for race day.
The things we're passionate about, we get to talk about on here, and if people don't like it, they can hit skip. But if they liked it, great. If you did like the racing talk, there's more of it out there. Trackside, Kirk Cavan and Kevin Lee, or the Marshall Pruitt podcast. I've been listening to a lot of Marshall Pruitt this week.
Marshall Pruitt's pretty fantastic. If you like a little bit of technical insight, and then he's been doing a daily show this month where he's been talking. He talked to Davison.
James Davison interview was excellent. I learned more about James Davison and the struggle and if you're looking for a guy to cheer for, that dude has worked his butt off.
I listened to it on
the
earbuds while walking around the track yesterday, and then looked up, and like 3 minutes after I finished it, I look, and Marshall Pruitt's talking to Davison in the pits. I was like, I was just listening to you. He's got a really excellent one. And then if you want to hear history of the track and get a little taste of Donald Davidson, if you follow the trackside feed, you'll get Talk of Gasoline Alley, which is Donald Davidson literally taking questions. You call and you say, "I want to hear about so-and-so," and it'll be the guy who finished 3rd in the 1913 race, and he'll give you his life story off the top of his head, and you get to understand
It's absolutely incredible.
guys, like I said, I took his class, and it's impossible. I tried to learn as much as I can, but you can't really learn anything because it's tangential thought. It's not really
it can't be taught. It's
like
just,
I tried to. You can't do an outline because he'll go off on a thing about this house or that house, and it talked about back in the day, drivers would stay in people's houses, and I would love to take a tour of Speedway, and he could point, well, that's the house where the 2000, or the 1926 winner hung out for the month. So
yeah, it's just phenomenal. If you want homework, Dakota, we'll send you on that.
Yeah, but
we can send you on a desert island with about 100 hours of Donald Davidson.
Marshall Pruitt and Talk to Gasoline Alley they go nightly. Trackside does, I think, right after the Mini, and then once they start on track, then Marshall Pruitt does, and he goes into some really interesting things. So yeah, I try to follow all that.
Any other final thoughts?
Marshall has just really hit the scene the last few years. That's been really, really good content.
Yeah, he's been at Racer, and his podcast is a little over a year old. Right after, or maybe it's 2 years, right after Rossi won the Indy 500, there was an episode he had, one of his very early ones, and that was like, nobody knew Rossi. Rossi had only been in the country about 2 years and come out of F1, and he won the Indy 500.
And came in with no personality. He came like whitewashed from Formula One, so people had a hard time liking him at first, but he's gotten his personality back.
Yeah, but he was comfortable with Marshall, and he spent half an hour or 45 minutes talking to him, I think the day after the race, and that was kind of where I'm like, okay, I get this guy a little bit, and I can understand him.
He's got a dry sense of humor, and he's an interesting guy, but yeah, he kind of had to come out of the F1 shell. They definitely kind of lock you down there.
Any other final thoughts, Zach? Anything to promote?
No.
Anything you want to sell? Time to trade with Zach?
Nope, just across the street all the time. I just enjoy the podcast, and if anybody else, if you like another great racing podcast, it's called Dinner with Racers. If anybody ever wants to catch that, it's two guys that travel around the country interviewing people, eating meals, and just random people to get racing. It's fantastic for whatever kind of racing they do: sports cars, NASCAR, IndyCar. Ed Carpenter has a great interview on that one as well. So,
all right,
it's interesting.
Very good. Mike, you're a realtor by trade. You ought to try to sell something, get some leads. People want to list their houses.
I'm the only guy with 3 full-time careers over here, but I love the race. It's going to be a great race. It always is a great race. When you have family members that you go to the race with year in and year out, and I see the same people. We've got a friend that I went to grade school with named Brad Allen, who is a huge race fan's probably watching. If you've got a guy like that whose son drives Rossi's bus, there's always a local connection to racing. You've got Scott Haven, who's sold marketing materials to all these teams. You've got a lot of local guys. Brent Harvey is one of the engineers on Ed Carpenter. He's from Hagerstown. Hell, Tony Kanaan married a Cambridge City girl.
That's right. He married a Fortman.
Yeah.
No.
Bolander.
Yes, Laura Bolander.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's always had a local flair. I was introduced to it by Jim Davidson, and John, his brother's still out there with us every year taking pictures. Sunday night or Monday morning, look for AP photo by Mike McKown,
There we go. Dakota, are you ready for this?
Yep. I guess that's my final thoughts. Of course, I have to pitch to Patreon. Support us on Patreon if you enjoy this. $5 a month, you can get all kinds of bonus content. But also, I really am looking forward to the first Indy 500 that I've gone to. I think it'll be a good time. I'm actually really looking forward to it.
If you get a chance, just chat with the yellow shirts. They've got great stories.
Oh, I bet.
And most of them have been there
forever.
Like the guy that barked at Ashley Judd, he's always in the same spot. And there's a guy that I think he said he opened the doors at the museum. When you go in the museum, there's a guy that opened the doors and the track's open. And somebody asked him how long. He's been 30 years. He's been opening that door. So
wow.
And sometimes you can just sit and chat with them, and they have great stories because if they're in the track on race day, they probably have been there a little while. You can tell in there.
Thursday night at the Hall of Fame dinner, the yellow shirt that has protected me from passers-by sits right to my right. Another photographer that's right behind me sits right to my left. I mean, it's a great thing.
My final thought. My cousin Nick, who's a groomsman at my wedding, I drug him to the race 6 years ago. He doesn't give a damn about sports. He's been to the race every year because it's just a thing you go to.
Yep.
It's become our tradition where I get him to come here every day.
That story is the only reason that I decided to go.
Yeah.
Was because I know Nick doesn't really care about sports, and he likes going. So I
don't think he's ever seen a car, but he goes. It's just worth going.
Because the nickname for the event is it's the greatest spectacle in racing. So it's not just the race, it's everything that goes on around the race. And
right.
So
I used to stand on the edge of the grandstand when the mortar shell would go off and watch a hearse with urinals strapped to the side of it come flying in, mud flying everywhere. I mean, you'll see some things you've never seen before, I assure you.
There will be women in the men's bathroom.
I've heard of that.
That's definitely going to
That's a thing now.
The Chuck Berry slip and slides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just brace yourself. You're gonna have stories for the rest of your life. All right, that's the end of this one. We will see you all Thursday night. We're gonna have Councilman Clay Morgan, and I think I don't know, is Cade coming on with us?
I
think we have Cade.
I think it's Cade.
All right, We'll see. We'll see you all Thursday.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeAreLibertarians.com.